candles on my 65th birthday cake flickered like tiny warning lights across the darkened dining room. My son Michael leaned in with that smile I've seen too many times, the one that hides more than it shows. And then, just as I drew in my breath to blow out the flames, my grandson tugged on my sleeve and whispered words that shattered me. "Grandma. I heard Dad and Aunt Lily say they're sending you to Lakeside Manor tonight, and they're taking your money." I froze, smiling for the room, but inside, rage roared through me like a wildfire breaking free. They thought I was too weak, too old, too broken to fight back. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. If you've ever felt dismissed, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, or maybe you've experienced the deepest loneliness or that unbearable pain of losing those you love most, share it. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because maybe the next story will remind you of your own strength. The living room walls were covered in framed photographs. Michael's graduation, Lily's wedding, little Ethan's drawings pinned proudly to the fridge. But not a single picture of Frank and me. Not one photo from the life we'd built together. It was as if I'd been erased from my own story. Michael's voice cut through my thoughts as he cleared plates from the table. "Mom, you know we just want what's best for you. You can't live alone anymore. You need family." His smile was rehearsed, the kind he used at church fundraisers. "Family," I repeated softly, twisting my wedding band on my finger. "That's what this is." Lily, perched on the edge of the couch with a glass of wine, chimed in. "Eleanor, stop being so dramatic. We've done everything for you since Frank died. You'd be lost without us." I studied her. The perfect manicure, the designer blouse she could never afford on her salary. The little signs of a woman who always managed to live beyond her means. My money had been stretching further than I realized. Inside, a storm brewed. Lost without them? I thought. No, they've been draining me dry. One smile, one guilt trip at a time. Ethan, sweet boy, padded across the carpet in his socks and climbed into my lap. His innocence pressed against my chest like a shield I wasn't sure I could hold. He whispered again, just for me. "Grandma, are you mad at Daddy?" I forced my lips into a smile. "Of course not, honey. Grandma just needs to think." Michael looked over, his expression tightening. "Mom, don't upset him. We're trying to keep everything calm." Calm. The word echoed like a threat. Calm meant silent. Calm meant compliant. Calm meant the life they had planned for me, boxed up, shipped off, forgotten in a place called Lakeside Manor. I kissed Ethan's hair, breathing in the scent of crayons and childhood. And I knew, with a clarity that steadied my heartbeat, that if I didn't act tonight, I would lose everything. My independence, my dignity, my very name. But they had underestimated me. I looked across the room at the fireplace, where Frank's picture once stood before Michael accidentally boxed it up. In its place now was a decorative vase Lily had bragged about buying on sale. A hollow vessel, just like their version of love. I set Ethan gently down, smoothing his hair. "Why, don't you go play with your toys, sweetheart? Grandma has some calls to make." He nodded, skipping away, oblivious to the storm about to break. I pulled my phone from my pocket, fingers trembling only slightly. The truth was rising inside me like a tide. Unstoppable. "They think I'm helpless," I whispered to myself, staring at the shadows flickering on the wall. But tonight, they're going to learn what helpless really means. The kitchen was dim, lit only by the weak glow of the under-cabinet light and the moon spilling through the window. The rest of the house buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, Michael and Lily pretending tonight was about me. Pretending it was my birthday. But I knew better. I pressed the phone to my ear, my hands still damp from rinsing dishes. For a second, I almost hung up, fear coiling in my stomach like a snake. What if I was wrong? What if I was imagining it all? But then I saw Ethan's crayon drawing taped crookedly on the fridge. A stick figure grandma, holding his hand, smiling under a sun. He believed in me. He needed me strong. Thomas Reed, a deep voice answered after 2 rings. He sounded older, steadier, but still carried the same warmth from our college days. Thomas. It's Eleanor, I whispered, glancing toward the doorway. I need help. Tonight. There was a pause. Eleanor? My God, it's been years. What's wrong? Swallowed hard, my throat tight. They're planning something. My son, my sister. They forged papers. Committed me to a nursing home. They're after Frank's insurance money. My words spilled out, half choked, half furious. He exhaled sharply. Are you safe right now? I looked at the dining room where Michael raised, a toast, his laugh booming, Lily's eyes gleaming as she clinked her glass. My stomach turned. Safe? I murmured. I'm standing in a house that used to be mine, surrounded by vultures who call themselves family. No, Thomas, I'm not safe. There was silence on the line. Then his voice lowered, urgent. Meet me at my office, midnight. Bring every document you still have. Deeds, insurance, anything. Don't let them see you leave. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, breathing through the fear. Midnight. I'll be there. Eleanor, he said softly, the way he used to when I was nervous before exams. You're stronger than you think. I ended the call, slipping the phone back into my pocket just as footsteps approached. Mom? Michael leaned against the doorway, a dish towel slung over his shoulder, his eyes too sharp to be casual. Who are you talking to? The kitchen light glared on his face, every line of suspicion etched deep. I forced my lips into a small smile. Oh, just an old friend from church, checking in. People worry about me, you know. He studied me for a beat longer, then chuckled as if I were a child caught sneaking cookies. You're always so dramatic, Mom. Relax. We've got everything under control. Under control. My fists clenched against my sides. He turned away, humming as he walked back to the laughter in the dining room. I stayed rooted in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My heart pounded, but beneath the fear, something else stirred. Steel, sharp and unbending. They think this is under control, I whispered to the empty room. By morning, they'll see just how wrong they are. The clock in Thomas Reed's office ticked past 11, each second sharp as a hammer strike. His downtown Chicago office was dim except for the harsh fluorescent light above his desk. I sat across from him, clutching my purse like it was the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. Thomas slid a stack of documents across the polished wood surface. His expression was grave. Eleanor, I need you to see this. My hands trembled as I pulled the papers closer. My own name stared back at me, scrawled in shaky handwriting at the bottom of a form. Commitment papers. To Lakeside Manor. My voice broke. That's my signature. Thomas shook his head firmly. No, it's not. Look closer. The strokes, the pressure. This was forged. I'd stake my license on it. I traced the false signature with my fingertip, bile rising in my throat. They were going to declare me insane. My own flesh and blood. Thomas leaned forward, voice low but fierce. These were filed yesterday. If you hadn't called me tonight, Eleanor, by morning, you'd be strapped into the back of a van, powerless. They'd have everything. Your accounts, your insurance, your life. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles, white. Michael signed this, didn't he? Thomas's jaw tightened. Michael and Lily both. Witnesses. They covered their tracks well. My chest burned. Memories flashed. Michael as a boy. running down the sidewalk with scraped knees, calling me Mom, with that open, innocent smile. Lily braiding my hair the summer Frank and I took her in, promising she'd always look after me. I pressed my eyes shut. How did we get here? How did love curdle into greed so foul it could smother me alive? Thomas's voice cut through my thoughts. We can fight this. But you need to act fast. Bank transfers, revocation of power of attorney, new will, tonight. I opened my eyes, and for the first time in months, I felt something sharper than grief. Rage, yes, but also clarity. I straightened in my chair, pushing the forged documents back across the desk. Then we do it all. Every safeguard, every signature, every weapon I have left. If they think I'm helpless, let's prove them dead. Wrong. Thomas gave a grim nod. Good. I'll draft the revocation papers now. By dawn, they'll have nothing left to stand on. Outside, the city hummed faintly, sirens wailing in the distance. In the waiting room, Ethan hummed to himself, playing with toy blocks Thomas kept for visiting children. He had no idea the world was shifting under his tiny feet. I glanced at him through the open doorway, my heart breaking and hardening all at once. Thomas, I said, my voice steady. They're not just underestimating me. They're teaching Ethan what betrayal looks like. I intend to teach him something else, what justice looks like. Thomas slid the first form toward me. Then sign here. Let's take back your life. The pen felt heavy, but my hand didn't shake. The tip scratched across paper, rewriting not just my legal future, but the story they thought they controlled. And, in that sterile office, under the glare of fluorescent light, I made a silent vow. By the time the sun rises, Michael and Lily will regret ever thinking they could bury me alive. I used to believe grief made people softer, kinder. After Frank died, I thought family would close ranks around me, protect me. Instead, they circled like wolves. It started the week after the funeral. I still wore black, my eyes swollen from crying. Michael sat across from me at the kitchen table, papers already spread out. Mom, he said gently, too gently. The market's hot right now. You could sell the condo for a great price. It's too much house for you anyway. Come, stay with us. You'll never be lonely. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that love was still stronger than loss. So I sold the home Frank and I had built for 32 years. 3 bedrooms, the lilac bush out front, the dent in the doorway from the time Michael rode his tricycle inside. I handed Michael the $720,000 check, thinking I was giving us all a fresh start. But the moment the ink dried, the change was visible. Jessica's eyes lit up. Lily's tone softened. Suddenly, I was indispensable. Not as a mother or sister, but as a wallet and a babysitter. The first signs were small. Grocery bills left on the counter with a sticky note. Can you cover this, Mom? Ethan's school fees slipped into my purse. Michael's car payment mysteriously withdrawn from our shared account. Then came the guilt trips. Every time I mentioned getting my own place, Michael's voice sharpened. Emma needs you. You're so good with her homework. Besides, at your age, wouldn't you rather be with family than alone? At my age. I was 67, not 97. I could still drive, still cook, still think. I could still fight. But back then, I was too blinded by grief to argue. Lily's manipulation was quieter, but just as sharp. She'd stroke my hand and say, Eleanor, your experience with children is priceless. Ethan's thriving because of you. What she meant was, keep doing unpaid labor while we go out 3 nights a week. The worst part wasn't the money or the chores. It was the slow, steady isolation. My friends would call from the church book club, but Lily would answer the phone. Oh, she's not up for visitors. The ladies from my volunteer group knocked, only to be told I needed rest. Bit by bit, my circle shrank, until my world was reduced to the 4 walls of their house. One evening, I overheard them whispering, "In the hallway. She's worth more to us here than on her own," Michael muttered. I sat in my room, staring at Frank's old sweater folded on my lap, tears burning hot. I whispered to the empty air, "I miss you, Frank. You'd know what to do." But the truth gnawed at me. Frank wasn't here. No one was coming to save me. Now sitting in Thomas's office 18 months later, I saw the pattern with perfect clarity. They hadn't been protecting me. They'd been consuming me, piece by piece, month by month, and tonight, for the first time, I felt the hunger turn back on them. The house smelled of pot roast and rosemary, a scent meant to comfort, but tonight it felt like stage makeup, applied thick to hide the cracks. I tied my old blue apron around my waist, smoothing it with deliberate calm. My hands looked steady, but my chest throbbed with every beat. If this was going to be my last dinner in this house, it would be unforgettable. I mashed potatoes slowly, each press of the fork punctuating the thoughts in my head. They forged my signature. They plan to erase me. They think I'm already gone. When Michael and Lily walked in, their voices were too loud, too bright, the way liars sound when guilt gnaws at them. Michael sniffed the air and forced a grin. "Smells amazing, Mom. You really outdid yourself." I turned, spoon in hand, giving him a warm smile. "Well, I wanted tonight to be special. You never know when life might change." Lily froze mid-step, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood. "Change?" she repeated, her voice sharp. "Oh, just life in general, dear." I kept my tone light, dropping another spoonful of potatoes onto the serving dish. "Nothing ever stays the same forever, does it?" Michael and Lily exchanged a glance, silent lightning sparking between them. I caught it, tucked it away like a secret card. At the table, I served them carefully, the silverware clinking like a metronome marking time. Ethan chattered happily about school projects, his voice the only innocent melody in the room. Michael nodded distractedly. Lily pushed food around her plate. I studied their faces in the soft glow of the chandelier. Sweat beaded faintly on Michael's forehead. Lily's nails tapped the stem of her wine glass. They were squirming, though I hadn't yet drawn my blade. "This roast is incredible," Michael muttered, his fork barely touching the meat. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said sweetly, folding my hands in my lap. I just wanted us all together. Tonight, families should eat together, especially before big changes. Lily nearly choked on her sip of wine. Her eyes darted to Michael, who clenched his jaw and forced a laugh. "Mom," he said too loudly, "don't be dramatic. Everything is fine." But his voice cracked on fine. Inside I smiled, though my lips never moved. They could sense the ground shifting, but didn't yet know where the fault line would split. As I cleared Ethan's plate, I let the silence stretch, heavy as a storm cloud. Finally, I patted his head and said, "Sweetheart, why don't you go play in your room? Grandma and your parents have some things to discuss after dinner." Ethan trotted off happily, leaving the three of us in a thickening fog of tension. I placed the final dish in the sink, dried my hands carefully, and glanced at the grandfather clock in the hall. The hands pointed toward 7. Right on time. The doorbell rang, its chime cutting through the house like a summons. Michael and Lily stiffened. I smoothed my apron, wiped the last trace of food from my hands, and turned to the door with a calmness that wasn't calm at all. "Excuse me," I said softly. "That must be for me." The chime of the doorbell still hung in the air as I walked toward the entryway. My heart beat steady now, no longer trembling, but drumming with resolve. I opened the door, and there stood Thomas Reed, briefcase in hand, his face grim with purpose. "Good evening, Eleanor," he said formally, though his eyes softened when they met mine. Then he glanced past me into the house. "Shall we?" I stepped aside, my voice calm. "Come in, Thomas. We were just finishing dinner." Behind me, chairs scraped loudly against hardwood. Michael appeared first, face pale, jaw clenched. Lily followed, clutching her wine glass like a lifeline. "Who's this?" Michael demanded. I folded my hands, tilting my head. "You remember Thomas Reed, don't you? Old friend. Also my attorney." The word attorney sliced through the room like glass. Thomas set his briefcase on the coffee table in the living room, snapping it open with deliberate precision. "Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Parker," he said, nodding at them. "I'm here on behalf of your mother." Lily barked out a laugh, high-pitched, brittle. "On behalf of her? She doesn't need a lawyer. We take care of her." I moved past them, lowering myself into my favorite chair by the window. The lamplight framed me in gold, like a portrait finally reclaimed. "Is that what you call it? Taking care of me?" Michael's nostrils flared. "Mom, this is ridiculous. What's going on?" Thomas slid the first document across the table, his voice steady. "As of this evening, the power of attorney you both attempted to exercise has been formally revoked." Michael's face flushed crimson. "Attempted? What the hell are you talking about?" Thomas's gaze was unflinching. "The forged commitment, papers filed yesterday. We have proof of the forgery. Your authority ends here." Lily's glass slipped, shattering against the floor. She didn't even flinch. I leaned forward, my voice soft but cutting. "You thought you could lock me away. Silence me, but you underestimated me, Michael. You always have." Thomas continued, pulling out another folder. "Furthermore, Mrs. Parker has transferred her accounts to a new institution. Approximately $720,000, funds, from the sale of her condo, are no longer accessible to you." Michael exploded. "You can't just move money like that." "Yes," Thomas replied coolly. "She can. It was hers to begin with." Their panic was almost tangible now, filling the room like smoke. Lily clutched the back of the couch, her knuckles white. Michael paced, running his hands through his hair. I let the silence stretch before I delivered the final blow. "And, Thomas, perhaps you should explain the new will." He nodded, pulling out one last document. "The previous will left the bulk of Mrs. Parker's estate to her son. Effective today, the new will establishes a trust. Ethan will inherit everything upon reaching 25. Michael and Lily, you are excluded." The room went dead quiet. Only the ticking of the grandfather clock filled the void. Michael sank onto the couch, staring at me as if I'd become a stranger. "Mom, how could you?" His voice cracked. I met his gaze, steady as stone. "How could I?" "No, son. How could you?" Thomas's pen clicked shut as he slipped the will back into his briefcase. For a moment, the only sound was the ragged breathing of Michael and Lily, their world crumbling around them. But Thomas wasn't finished. "There's another matter we need to address," he said, his voice heavy with something even darker. Michael stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Thomas opened a thin manila folder, the edges worn from his handling. He laid out a series of insurance statements. On the coffee table, the numbers gleamed under the lamplight like weapons. Frank Parker carried 2 life insurance policies, Thomas explained. The smaller one, worth $1 million, was disclosed after his passing. Eleanor received it, though even then, she was told it was less than it truly was. He tapped the second document, his eyes narrowing. But there was another, a policy worth $1.5 million, and only a portion ever reached Eleanor's hands. My blood turned to ice. I leaned forward, my voice trembling. "A portion? How much?" Thomas met my gaze. "You received $1 million. The other $500,000. Missing." The room swayed. I clutched the arms of my chair to steady myself. Missing? How could that be? Michael shot to his feet, his voice rising. This is insane! You don't know what you're talking about. Thomas's eyes flashed. Don't I? Because the paperwork tells a different story. Bank transfers, signatures, authorizations. Someone diverted $500,000 the week after Frank's funeral. I stared at my son. His face, once so familiar, now twisted with something I couldn't recognize. Michael, I whispered. Did you? He turned away, his shoulders rigid. I did what needed to be done, he muttered. Lily gaped at him. Michael! He spun, eyes blazing. Don't act surprised, Lily. You knew money was coming in. You just didn't care where it went. My heart shattered with each word. I saw Frank's smile in Michael's jawline, his boyish dimples now hardened into contempt. $500,000 stolen. Not from strangers, but from me, his own mother, still in mourning. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and unrelenting. I buried your father, Michael. I couldn't breathe. And you, my voice cracked. You were stealing from me while I was still learning how to sleep in an empty bed? For the first time, Michael faltered. His lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes darted to the floor, to the papers, to Thomas's piercing stare. Thomas closed the folder with a snap. This isn't just betrayal, Mrs. Parker. It's fraud. It's criminal. And if necessary, we will take it to court. The silence that followed was suffocating. The chandelier above cast fractured light across the room, illuminating faces lined with guilt, fury, and pain. I pressed a trembling hand against my chest, drawing in a steadying breath. Rage coursed through me, fierce and undeniable. $500,000. I whispered, more to myself than to them. And you thought I'd never find out. My eyes lifted, sharp and unyielding now. But I always do, Michael. I always do. The night pressed heavy against the windows, rain streaking the glass like tears. The revelations already burned in my chest. $500,000 gone, my own son at the center of the theft. I thought nothing could wound me deeper. I was wrong. Thomas's voice was quieter now, careful, as if he knew he was about to open a wound that might never close. Eleanor, the missing money wasn't only diverted, it was redirected to another beneficiary listed on Frank's policy. I blinked, shaking my head. Another beneficiary? Frank only ever named me. Thomas hesitated, then slid one final document across the table. A name was scrawled in black ink. Linda Hayes. My breath caught. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Linda? My voice cracked around the name. His secretary. Michael flinched. His silence was answer enough. I gripped the paper, fingers trembling. Images flooded back. Company picnics. Linda's blonde hair shining in the sun. Her hand, brushing Frank's arm just a second too long. I had buried those suspicions, convinced myself it was harmless. But here was proof, written into the fabric of my betrayal. Tears blurred the letters until they bled together. So it's true, I whispered. He gave her everything. Even after death, he chose her. Thomas leaned forward, steady. Not everything. Half. But there's more. Linda contacted me earlier this week. She admitted she signed papers she didn't fully understand. Said Michael pressured her, told her it was a clerical mistake, that she should quietly cash her check. My head snapped toward Michael, fury flooding hot through my veins. You used her. You used her to steal from me. Michael's face hardened, but his eyes flickered with panic. Mom, you don't understand. Dad loved her. He was going to leave it all to her anyway. I was just protecting what was left for us. The words cut deeper than any blade. Protecting what was left. He had robbed me with the same hands that once held mine when he was a boy. Lily stared at him in shock. Michael, my God, you dragged me into this while you were lying to me too? But I barely heard her. My thoughts tunneled in on Frank's ghost and Michael's betrayal, layered like scars on scars. I rose from my chair, my knees steady though my heart thundered. I lifted the paper high, my voice shaking but strong. Frank betrayed me in life. And you, Michael, you betrayed me in death. Both of you thought I'd be too blind, too weak, too broken to see. But I see now. I see everything. The chandelier light flashed against the tears on my cheeks, turning them into steel. Thomas closed, his briefcase with a snap. Mrs. Parker, I'll prepare criminal charges in the morning. Insurance fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. They won't escape this. Michael stumbled back, his face gray. Mom, please. Think of Ethan. I looked at him. My son, the boy, who once held my hand at the zoo, who now held forged documents instead. My heart cracked, but my voice was merciless. I am thinking of Ethan, and he deserves to know what justice looks like. The grandfather clock struck 9, each chime reverberating through the walls like a countdown to judgment. The house no longer smelled of pot roast. It smelled of fear, sharp and metallic, clinging to the air. Michael paced the room, his hands shaking. Lily sat rigid on the couch, her face drained of color, eyes darting between me and Thomas like a cornered animal. And then, the knock, firm, unyielding. Michael froze. Lily whispered, Who is that? I rose slowly, smoothing the skirt of my dress, every motion deliberate. Justice, I said simply, and opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, rain dripping from their hats, radios crackling faintly. One of them, tall with a steady gaze, addressed me directly. Mrs. Eleanor Parker? Yes, I replied, my voice clear. I'm the one who filed the complaint. Michael's voice broke. Complaint? Mom, what did you do? The officer's tone left no room for doubt. Michael Parker, you're under arrest for insurance fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. The words thundered in the room. Lily gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Michael stumbled backward, his eyes wide, his breath ragged. No, this is a mistake. Thomas stepped forward, handing the officers a folder. It's no mistake. Everything you need is in here. Bank records, forged signatures, witness statements. Enough to bury him in court. The officer pulled a pair of handcuffs from his belt. Metal glinted under the chandelier light. Michael's voice cracked, desperate now. Mom, please, think about Ethan. Think about your grandson. The memory of Ethan's small arms around my neck, his whispered confession at the birthday table, surged through me. My throat tightened, but my resolve did not waver. I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp as broken glass. You should have thought about Ethan before you tried to destroy his grandmother, before you stole his future for your greed. The click of the cuffs locking around Michael's wrists echoed like a gavel striking. He flinched, shoulders collapsing, the fight draining from him as the officers pulled his arms behind his back. Lily sobbed quietly, rocking in place. Michael. My God, Michael. He turned his head toward me, eyes wet with rage and fear. You're my mother, he choked out. How could you do this to me? I held his gaze, tears burning but unfallen. No, Michael. How could you do this to me? The officers guided him toward the door. Rain lashed against the porch, the night swallowing him as they led him away. For a moment, The silence was suffocating. Only the broken sobs of Lily filled the living room. I stood in the center, surrounded by shards of betrayal and the ashes of what once was family. My knees trembled, but I straightened, lifting my chin. "Tonight," I whispered into the quiet, "the chains are broken." And though my heart cracked with pain, for the first time in years, I felt the air of freedom fill my lungs. 3 months later, the Parker house was nothing but a memory I refused to carry. I now woke up to sunlight streaming through wide windows that overlooked Lake Michigan, not the dim shadows of a home that had become a prison. My new apartment was modest, a 2-bedroom on the 12th floor. But it was mine. Every lamp, every chair, every photograph on the wall had been chosen by me. I brewed my morning coffee and stood by the window, the lake glinting under a pale Chicago sun. Joggers traced the shoreline path below, dogs tugging their leashes, laughter rising faintly through the breeze. For the first time in years, I wasn't watching life through glass. I was part of it again. Ethan arrived every weekend, bounding through the door with his backpack and toy cars, his laughter filling the apartment like music. We baked cookies together, swam in the building's pool, and he sprawled on the floor with his crayons, drawing new pictures of us. This time, Grandma wasn't crying. This time, she was smiling for real. Jessica had taken a job at a dental office to keep a roof over their heads. She'd sold the big house, the SUV, all the trappings of a life she thought my money would sustain. She looked worn the last time I saw her, but there was something else too: determination. Maybe for the first time, she was learning to stand on her own feet. As for Michael, he was serving 18 months in a minimum security prison. Letters arrived sometimes, his handwriting shaky, pleas for forgiveness, promises to change. I read them, then tucked them into a drawer. Some wounds needed time to scar before they could bear weight. I joined a book club again, sitting in a circle of women who welcomed me back with warm hugs and homemade pies. I enrolled in an art class at the community college, my hands smudged with charcoal as I sketched still lifes. And every Thursday morning, I volunteered at the animal shelter, letting puppies crawl into my lap, their unconditional affection softening the places inside me that grief and betrayal had left raw. At 67, I was building a new life. Not the one Michael tried to script for me, not the shadow of Frank's choices, but my own. One evening, as Ethan slept in the guest room, I sat by the window with my sketchbook, the city glowing like a necklace of light against the lake. My chest rose with a quiet certainty. I had survived the storm. I had taken back my name. And maybe, just maybe, there was more ahead than survival. There was renewal. The night was quiet in my apartment, only the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic rising from the streets below. I sat at my kitchen table with a single lamp casting a warm circle of light. Ethan's latest drawing, 2 stick figures holding hands under a sun, was taped to the wall behind me. I turned toward the camera, my reflection caught faintly in the dark window. My voice was steady, but there was a softness too, the kind that only comes after walking through fire. Being kind doesn't mean being blind, I began. I thought love was enough to protect me. I thought family would never betray me. But grief can make you deaf to the whispers, blind to the red flags. And when you ignore those signs, people will take everything: your money, your freedom, even your dignity. I folded my hands, letting the silence breathe. But here's what I've learned. Your age doesn't define your strength. Your title, mother, sister, grandmother, doesn't mean you're required to surrender your self-respect. You can draw lines. You can fight back. You can demand to be seen as more than a wallet or a burden. The lamp flickered slightly, the light brushing across my face as I leaned closer. If you're listening to this, Maybe you felt it too. That knot in your chest when someone you love uses your trust against you. Maybe you've stayed silent out of guilt or fear. I want you to hear me now. Silence is not love. Silence is surrender. I glanced back at Ethan's drawing, a small smile touching my lips. When my grandson whispered the truth to me, I realized something. He wasn't just saving me. He was watching me, learning from me. And I had a choice. Teach him that betrayal wins, or teach him that justice does. My eyes met the camera again, firm now. I chose justice. For myself. For him. For every person who's ever been told they were too old, too weak, too powerless to matter. I let the words hang, then softened, my tone inviting. If you've walked through something like this, I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments. Let's build a place where survival isn't the end of the journey, where renewal and courage are the legacy we pass on. The city lights shimmered outside my window, a necklace of gold against the darkness. I lifted my cup of tea, holding it steady. Thank you for listening to mine. Don't forget to subscribe, and maybe, just maybe, someone else out there will find the courage they need because you chose to speak up. I took a sip, exhaled, and whispered one last truth. Being hurt doesn't make you weak. Being kind doesn't make you stupid. But standing up for yourself, that makes you free. Fade to black.